I'm Kate.
I'm Elle.
We are down to Fae, and we're continuing our Throne of Glass deep dive with Empire of Storms, chapters 9 through 11, and Tower of Dawn, chapters 4 through 7.
The tandem read has us switching books, which tracks with the timeline, but we'll talk about our Empire of Storms chapters first, then get into Tower of Dawn.
I went to a book signing with Jasmine Mass, and I have terrible news.
Oh, no.
Like, the signing itself was great. The room was full, because I always have this weird, like, I'm anxious that people aren't going to show up for other people's events.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, people like Blood of Hercules, right? And they do. Like, the room was full. The special editions were really pretty. They had these gorgeous sprayed edges. And Jasmine was very nice. And apparently, like, when she was talking, people were asking questions about this other series that apparently Blood of Hercules connects to.
Oh.
And I didn't even know it existed, but Psycho Shifters, which, like, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's on my list. But when I looked on Spotify Premium, the audiobook wasn't available yet, but it's definitely on my list.
Okay.
But she asked the crowd, like, who's team professors and who's team mentors? And I laughed, like, condescendingly, because I'm team why choose? You know, like me, an intellect, why would we choose? But then when someone asked kind of a question like that, she said that you're going to have to pick a side.
Oh.
And I was like, wait a minute. And in that moment, I had anxiety, which is insane. But unfortunately, my body doesn't know the difference between like fight or flight or finding out a series isn't going to be a reverse harem. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm not prepared to choose between the mentors or the professors. So I went to that. And then I kind of feel like I'm in. These are the updates no one asked for, by the way. Like, if you don't care about us as people, feel free to skip ahead to when the I finally figured out how to put chapters in, so you can. The first part is always yapping, and then you can hit deep dive if you don't care. But I'm kind of in a reading drought. Like, it sounds crazy because we have a book podcast. But I started like 5 audiobooks this week, and then none of them were hitting. So I was like, fuck it. And I restarted Ice Planet Barbarians.
Sometimes it's nice to go back to what you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the problem is I can't just read one and then move on. I now have to read all 50 of them.
Oh.
Well, really, there's 49 books. But then,
wait, seriously?
No, wait. There's 19 books. But each
I was like, shit.
No, but each book has a novella. So
of course.
It's 40 books.
Wow.
Because everyone has like their honeymoon book or like side story book. But like, it's been a while since I listened to Ice Planet Barbarians, like book 1. I forgot how truly insane that book starts. Like, literally page 1, she's already been abducted. The aliens are assaulting the women. And like, I read that Ruby Dixon, the author, said that if she had to rewrite it now, because I think it was 2015, she wouldn't put so much like trauma up top.
Okay.
Because the aliens that abduct them are literally assaulting the women if they make noise. But then they crash land, and the FMC wakes up to an alien going down on her. Like,
okay.
Well, so they crash land, and then she's sent out because she's like the southern one. So they're like, you can handle yourself.
Oh, okay.
And she's like the least hurt in the crash. So they send her out, and then she wakes up, and an alien is going down on her. And I'm just going to have to do an Ice Planet Barbarian episode because I have so many thoughts. Like, re-listening to it, I think it's insane that she teaches the aliens about blowjobs. Like, you crash landed on a planet and they don't know about them. So, like, she could have never sucked a dick again. And instead, she brought it up.
I mean, like, I'm interesting.
If
I
they
haven't had
were
a chance to choose you. This is already happening. So, like, that's hard for me. I'm like, okay.
Well, if the aliens were asking me, like, what do you do on your planet? And I was like, well, usually the guy finger bangs the girl and then he goes to sleep in another room. That is our culture. But she also teaches them about kissing. And I don't even think I'd bring that up because they don't use their mouths for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Very different custom because they have, I don't know. I don't even want to go on an entire tangent about it. But I had never listened to the audiobook, and I guess they were going for a Southern accent. She's from Florida, which I would not consider the South.
No.
But it's like that Florida and Texas are like their own countries. They're doing their own things. I don't consider them part of the South. But it's mostly her just talking slowly. like she has a mouthful of molasses, kind of.
Oh.
Once you get past that, I'm obsessed with the male
Oh, so
narrator.
there's more than one narrator.
Yes, so it is
Okay.
a woman and a man, and like when we're in his POV and you hear Georgie talking, that's the FMC, it's what he hears and he doesn't understand. So it's like, so that's what the fuck are you doing? So it's kind of like weird, but it's very funny. Like it made me laugh every time. And
Okay.
like in her POV, she's like, oh my God, look at this weird looking primitive alien. And he's like, oh, she's stupid and she's weird looking, but I love her.
What?
He's very sweet. Vectol, of course.
Uh-huh.
And he's very sweet, he's very cute, and like the general setup is the women are abducted to be sold. They crash land on a planet where the quote barbarians live, and they only have like 3 to 4 women total. So like sidebar, there's probably some incest going on. That's never really touched on.
Okay.
But the men, like there are 6 women on the ship, and there's also 6 women in stasis. So like she was definitely setting up of like I can make so many books based on this premise because like each woman, you know?
Uh-huh.
And when they go to get the men to help like the other aliens, they're like, fuck yeah, because there's no women. And so they're thinking like you get a mate, you get a mate. And so everyone has their own story and it's just a fun read. Like it's kind of I would say avatar porn-ish, maybe. Like it's
Okay.
more sci-fi than fantasy, but there's also fated mates, forced proximity, an ensemble cast, which you know that I love, and tales, which you also know that I love.
Uh-huh.
I need everyone to read it so we can talk about it. But like we've decided, like you have your guy in Black Dagger Brotherhood and Lords of the Underworld, and then when
Mhm.
we went to Thunder from Down Under, we always have to claim our own guy and just go into it knowing that Rahash is mine.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can have any of the others. I don't know if other friend groups do that, like that we have this conversation of who we're splitting everyone up.
I mean, it seems reasonable so we don't have any
Yeah,
confusion.
we don't want to get
We
confused.
don't wanna have to fight over these men, please.
And I'm already on book 3 because they're
Wow.
pretty short. When I read a book, I always go to Goodreads to see if I have bad taste. And
Okay.
everyone seems to agree that you start out reading the series as a joke, and then 20 books later, it's not so much a joke. But I'm kind of
Okay.
in this weird in between period where, like, May 13th, I know I'm going to start the second of Fate Inked in Blood book. I
Mhm.
can't remember what it's called. And the second Lights Out book comes out in June. I can't remember what that's called either. And we were also sent an arc of This Vicious Dream by Stasia Stark, and that is the author of A Court That's Cruel and Lovely. So,
Okay.
like, lots on the schedule, very busy girls. But it was like this weird in between period where I was like, I need to be able to listen to something before starting all this other stuff. And I just wanted like a fun little smutty palate cleanser.
I appreciate that you say that because I went on vacation recently with my family and I was like, this is my chance to read. I started 2 different books and couldn't get into either of them.
Did you
And
start
then
A Court of the Vampire Queen? Because I loved that book.
oops.
I loved it so much I like got a signed copy.
I mean, I just couldn't quite jump into that one. I was having trouble finding my like
Honestly, the
nothing was hooking
world
me.
building starts later on in that book, which is weird. But it like I'm talking 15 pages in, there's probably a smutty scene.
Actually, it might have been 3 series because I started something that was like Lucifer's Daughter. There was supposed to be some kind of reverse harem with demons.
Yeah.
I don't know, there was a couple that just like wasn't really hitting. And then a reader or not reader, a listener had asked if we had any mermaid
Oh
recommendations. And
yeah.
it started me down this whole path. Like I think in the past have talked about like the Siren Queen trials, but I was like, what good books are there about mermaids? So I was like scouring book talk and like digging through Amazon and there's a few books that I kept seeing over and over again. And the one that I started with is hilarious. And it's called The Sea Witch. And it's literally
Mhm.
like a Little Mermaid retelling.
Like a dirty little mermaid?
Yes. But
I
so
does he have tentacles?
of course.
Oh,
But so
fuck yeah.
The Sea Witch is a guy, and obviously she
Like
falls.
Ursula?
Yeah, but
I
it's a
never really
guy.
thought about Ursula's tentacles.
Yeah. They made Ursula so aggressive in the cartoon, it's hard to consider her, but like because it's this really hot, sexy guy,
Mhm.
she ends up falling for him instead of the Prince Eric character. And he has to teach her about like being seductive and sexy to win over her
Of
prince. So there's a
course.
lot of just like smutty moments and a lot of things with tentacles. And it was a really fun read. And I'm definitely going to do a book review of it. I recommend it to everybody.
Well, you know what really got me into tentacles
Yes.
was that Katie Robert book,
Oh, the
The
Kraken
Kraken.
one? Yeah.
It was like, was it The Kraken Sacrifice? It was part of that. She has
Something.
a series where these mortal women make a deal with the demon, and the demon also eventually gets his own book. And they are auctioned off to, like, the first one is Dragon. I can't remember what the others are, but that
All I
dragon
know
I know has 2
Yeah, I was
dicks.
saying we've talked about the dragon one before,
Dragon's
so
Bride.
I need to read
And the
those.
Kraken one is just so funny because at the auction, when they're kind of like in the shadows, but one is in a sunken pool, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Okay.
Later, something's going to have tentacles, and it
I don't know
does.
if my first thought was like, "Oh, obviously tentacles," but
Mine was.
we actually
Because, like,
we
he does some interesting. So it's one thing just to have tentacles and it
uh-huh.
just be like, you just have, it's part of your anatomy. It's another thing when you like use your
Oh,
tentacles.
yeah. The sea witch uses his tentacles, but also we learn about how mermaids have sex.
Hmm.
So, there were
We've always
and
wondered
humans
that
too.
with
So,
Therion.
there w the it's
Is it a flap?
yeah, there's a flap with, like, a bendy extendable dick, and I was like,
Oh,
"Whoa."
wow. Like
Like
bendy, like a bendy straw where you could bend it?
like it's flexible because I think that's probably based on, like, real fish somehow. I don't know. I don't
No,
it's
that
like
sounds
in
scientific.
Wales, like, I don't wanna actually know that detail, but it was a fun read, so I've got more mermaid books lined up, and then also, like, we're doing a bunch of KF Breen for
Yes,
May.
bring it on. We have a different KF Bream book because I think she is such an underrated author.
Yeah, they're
Like,
such fun
especially Demon
stories.
Days Vampire Nights is one of those I would put up there. I mean, I don't know what I'd put it up there with. Like top 10 of my
Oh, yeah.
favorite series.
I re-listen re-listen
I
and
re
I reread that one more than Crossbreed, more than, what else did we talk about recently? Lords of the Underworld,
Mhm.
more than Black Dagger, like, I go back
Wow.
to that one a lot.
And then we're gonna have to do, I know we've done 2 Black Daggers already, but we need to do a standalone Black Dagger when the show comes out.
Oh, yeah, we'll have to, like, really get into that one again. It's just they're such great series, but yeah, so I'm reading about mermaids on one hand, and then I'm also, like, prepping to discuss KF Brain books because those are so fun, so I've got
Mhm.
a lot of very
We're
fun reading
so
ahead of me.
busy.
A lot of
Lot of tentacles.
fun reviewing. Oh my god. The minute like, because you had talked about the Katie Robert book before,
Mhm.
I haven't read it yet,
Yeah,
but
and you were kind of like
I was like, "Okay," and then like,
but then when you read it, you're like,
the
"Oh."
way those tentacles in multiple holes, I was like,
Yes,
"What?"
exactly. Yeah, okay.
Had my
Mhm.
attention.
It's just
So,
that things that a man could never do,
man,
you
those
know?
smutty palette cleansers sometimes they just hit. It's fun.
Well, and also in Ice Planet Barbarians, like, they can't have butt sex because they have their tails get in the way.
Oh,
So the
okay.
first time they see the
Reasonable.
human women, they're like, "What is this hole?"
And she and the fact that they're like, "You can use it."
It's just so
Wow.
funny. I think that series, and they're so cute, but
I mean, like, it sounds actually talking about the sea witch, the Ariel character gets human legs for the first time and has to learn about a clit, and she's just sitting there.
oh, they call
No
it a third nipple in Ice Planet Barbarians. They're like, because he's,
Oh, because how sensitive it is?
yeah, the first guy goes and he tells the others, and they're like, "What are they like?" And he's trying to describe them, and he's like, "They have a third nipple," and everyone's like, "What?" And then he's like, "And they don't have any ridges on their face," and the guys are like, "Ugh."
Oh, gross. Well, the girl is trying to figure out, like, what she's got going on down there. She's not wearing any pants because she just got changed.
Yeah.
She's got her legs, like, spread open, like, exploring with the sea
We
witch
all
sitting
did
there
that
like
with a hand mirror at some point.
I know, but just the fact that she's supposed to be this virgin character, it's a whole thing, and the sea witch is just sitting there like, "Can you close your
She's doing
legs?"
it in front of
Yeah, and
him.
he's like, "Oh god, I made the most perfect pussy I've ever seen." You're like, "Okay,
I've never, because
well."
there are like, in, I think in every Ice Planet Barbarian book, there is a scene where the girl is just spread eagle and he's just like taking it in of like it's just beautiful and pink, and like I'd never look at me directly in the eye. That
No.
eye. Don't look like I just can't imagine. That feels very vulnerable of just like
That's a lot.
don't look at it.
excuse me,
Even
turn
if
the
I've had
lights
an
down.
everything shower, like, turn the fucking lights off, get under the covers.
It's just so exposed. Yeah, like in the Sea Witch, like it's not like she doesn't think of it as her own genitals because she's never
She's,
seen it
like,
before.
detached from them, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm still having a moment of like, you're still kind of exposed. You're like, okay,
I
there's just a
hope we
lot.
get a moment in the next Crescent City book, which has to be House of Many Waters, like, that would be the
Mm-hmm.
logical conclusion. We have to find out about Therian's dick.
Oh,
What that tail do, what
speaking
that
of
dick do.
Merman, when we get into it with KF Brain, Demon Days, Vampire Nights,
Yes, she is that is one of the funniest bits in the entire
she's
series.
such a peeping Tom. Like she
Well
happens to catch them during mating season and she's like, "What are you guys doing?"
well, everyone like, I guess not everyone wonders, but no one knows how it
They're
works
so secretive
because 'cause they're
about
very
it.
secretive, and she's always, like, jumping in the water and trying to catch them in the act just to see how it works.
It's not funny, but it's so funny, like how like our FMC in that series is so insistent. She's like, "I
She's
just need to
very
know for
funny.
science."
No, it is, like, the sassy, but not annoyingly so
Yeah,
FMC. She's just funny, like, it's her and, like, I would say Raven from Crossbreed is like that, of just, like, a genuinely funny.
trying to figure out how to describe her because she's not like petty and she just like says what she's thinking. Like
Mhm.
even if it's a mean dig, like she's not necessarily like saying it to be cruel. She's just like, "Did you know that blah 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 blah? Did you mean for da 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 to happen?" And it's so funny.
And there's so many different, like, supernatural beings in that series,
Hmm.
and then there's, like, side plots and side characters who get their own books. It's just, like, a very well-written series that I hope everyone reads. So,
Yes,
like
we'll be getting into it in just a couple of days. So you
yeah.
guys stay tuned because yeah, before we like go too far into it, because it's so much fun to talk about.
Yeah, Demon Days, Vampire Nights, Ice Planet Barbarians, Sea Witch. Everyone immediately add it to your TBR.
It'll be worth it. Well,
I never know how to
I'll say
segue
back to the
into, like,
reason we're here.
tentacles anyway, so Manon.
We pick up with Manon arriving back in Morath after the witch's attack on Rifthold.
During which she killed a yellow legs bitch and her wyvern and watched Rowan kill 4 other yellow legs witches. So, like, 5 members of Iskra's coven, they're dead for the sake of Dorian, which, in my opinion, is a fair trade. But it's a huge problem. Like, it is a thick problem. Iskra knows. She doesn't know the context, but she scented the blood of her witch on Manon, which to me, we talked about this maybe in Air of Fire,
Mhm.
that it's kind of weird because their whole thing is killing Kraken witches. And I guess that it's a specific witch that like leaves a scent on you because they
Well,
would all smell like witch killers.
I'm wondering if because they are Iron Teeth witches, there's a different kind of like iron smell if you kill an Iron Teeth witch versus just killing a Kraken because they should all be witch killers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when Manon scented Baba Yellowlegs,
Aelin is standing there and the wind changes.
and she automatically knows. So maybe it's like each witch has a like specific scent to them because like she automatically knew it was Baba.
Yeah, well, I think Aelin says, now I've got it. We literally just talked about this, but I think Aelin says something about
Okay.
it being Baba, like hinting at one of their matrons. So, like, it's an even bigger
It's
offense.
just really interesting that the witches honestly don't have magic.
Hmm.
They have something they're capable of that we haven't really learned about yet at the end, but they don't have magic that would like what is leaving this imprint? What is leaving this scent? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is it because they're part Vogue and it smells like the Vogue and they that has a strange scent? I don't know.
Did it somehow, in some way, change something about
Like your
the person
chemical.
doing the killing? Yeah, that it's forever altered, but
I
like,
don't
why
know.
specifically killing witch and not killing others?
Bigger question, why do we care?
Because now we can't stop thinking about it. Manon's cover is the yellow leg sentinel she killed attacked her when she was closing in on Dorian, wanting to claim the kill for
And
herself.
she might have been doing that. Like I couldn't tell if she was going after baby girl to kill him or to take him prisoner.
It all kind of it didn't quite make sense because that whole meeting that Manon has with Parrington slash Erewhon, it sounds like initially the Yellow Legs Coven is going there to just decimate Rifthold.
Mm-hmm.
Then Manon convinces him to change his mind. And
But then
then
I guess
Manon,
Iskra's already gone.
well, Manon acts like they all should have still received orders to like
Yeah, how would they have
subdue,
known?
not slaughter. And I don't know. So like you can't tell like are the yellow legs doing what they want regardless? Should they know better?
It does seem
Are
like
they
her and
actually
Abraxos kinda, like but I think it was after this that they, like, go up on something high and they just, like, "We're done." But I think that was after this moment. So, yeah, I don't know how the Yellow Legs were supposed to know that they're not there to, like, destroy the city and kill Dorian.
it seemed to be yeah, it seemed like Manon thinks there was time for the changes in the orders to have been sent out. So, like, I'm not really sure. So, yeah, there's a chance that this Yellow Legs sentinel was in fact going to capture Dorian, not
Mhm.
kill. But even if that had been her original plan, Dorian took out several of the witches, and I feel like at that point she was like, "Fuck that.
Yeah.
I'm going for this guy." So, yeah, her cover is that this sentinel was attacking Manon when Manon was closing in on Dorian and trying to take the kill for herself. The other four witches died at the hands of Rowan, who saved Dorian while Manon was dealing with the rogue witch.
And like a little
Okay.
tattletale, Iskra jumped on her wyvern and fucked off back to Morath to tell the three Iron Teeth matrons. Before she goes into Erewhon's council chamber, Manon is kind of preparing for the worst. She tells
Mhm.
Astrid to take the 13 and leave if shit hits the fan.
Which is actually kind of more impressive that, like, Manon clearly knew what could potentially happen to her if she took care of Dorian and she still chose to, like, save Dorian.
Well, it also shows her priorities
Mhm.
of she puts the 13 above the Iron Teeth.
Mhm. Above all of the other Iron Teeth, yeah. Manon storms into the meeting, red cape flapping behind her, and it isn't just the matrons inside, it's the matrons and the heirs, including Petra.
Petra is the Blue Bloods heir, the one Manon saved during the war games back in Air of Fire when Iskra's wyvern tore the throat out of I don't think like this makes me want to cry thinking
I
about,
know.
but Iskra's wyvern tore the throat out of Petra's wyvern Keely. Or Kay what is it, Kaylee?
No, it's Keely.
I know, but remember in Ted Lasso how he says Keely?
Oh, yeah.
Kaylay.
Kaylay. I don't he says it really weird. The Blue Bloods are the more granola of the Iron Teeth
They
clans.
are.
The Mystics, Fanatics, and Zealots. The Blue Blood matron, Cressida. Actually, hold on. I think in the book she says Cressida,
Cressida.
although in Hunger Games it's Cressida, but okay.
Oh, wow.
In the Blue Blood matron, Cressida, more priestess than warrior, wears deep blue robes and a band of barbed iron stars on her brow.
And if you've been with us for a while, you know exactly where my brain is going. Cressida is Varian's sister from the Summer Court in Akatar, and she's with Tarquin when Pharaoh, Rhys, and Amryn visit. And my mind went, when I first saw that, my mind went in so many different directions because, you know, like when I saw it in Akatar, I was like, oh my God, I recognize this name. And Sarah's so purposeful about names or lack of names usually, but she admitted that she just forgot she had already used that name.
Dang.
And then the Blue Bloods' power of sight has always made me think about Elaine, who
Hmm.
I fully expect to be a witch, but also maybe more, maybe Nesta. I just have that mental image of Elaine wearing a blue cloak at the Illyrian camp, and they're talking about witches. And it does also sound similar to the priestesses in Akatar. They wear those blue gray robes, and they don't have like barbed iron stars, but they have that silver circlet that has
Hmm.
the blue invoking stone. And then that bitch Ianthe had the blue ink tattoo of the moon cycle. And we definitely brought that back to something in Throne of Glass that we saw with the moon cycle that I can't even remember what it was now. There was a connection there. But just like with the witches in Akatar, Cassian's big bad, like what he's scared of, Blue Annis, has iron claws and likes the blood of virgins.
She also gave Cassian a scar with those iron claws. Iron Teeth vibes reviving.
What's and it's near his neck too, which is kind of like Aelin's
The
scar from
circle of
Baba
s yeah, the
Yellowlegs,
circle of
yeah.
scars.
And in folklore, Black Annis was a blue-faced witch with iron claws and a taste for human flesh. And like not to go too far off topic, but I have an unhinged Elaine theory that relates to Tower of Dawn when we get to like one of the big
Ooh,
reveals.
okay.
And I don't want to go back into the whole Moore and Astron connections because we've already talked about it twice, unless you want me to.
I feel like the only answer is yes.
Yes. Okay, so just very quickly. Manon's grandmother branded unclean on Astron's stomach, and we know that Moore was dumped with a note nailed to her stomach. And Moore's nails are described as iron. She's Reese's last resort. Like they're saying, or Reese is like, even when Az and Cassian and the armies fail, that's when I'm going to bring in And, like,
He
why
doesn't even
would you
say
bring in
Amryn.
Yeah, exactly. Why would you bring in someone whose power is truth?
Mhm.
It doesn't make like, you're gonna what, bring her in to tell the truth, so is more capable of the yielding. Like, her signature color is red, too.
The Morrigan is also often described as a trio, and the witches worship the three-faced
There's
goddess.
just too much there for it to not be
A lot of
anything, right?
connections.
But I also thought that about White Lotus, and I was wrong about I wasn't wrong about all of my theories.
Yeah, but
One of them
Sarah
turns out to be
didn't write White Lotus, so
That's true.
it's not you.
That would be can you imagine a
I
season
would
of White Lotus written by SJM?
I
Oh
would
my
love it too
god.
much.
And the 3 matrons so just talking about the, three-faced goddess that the witches worship, the 3 matrons represent those 3 faces. So there's the maiden, the mother, and the crone. I'd be so fucking mad if I were the crone. But it's why the Blackbeak matron is always a witch in their prime, the Blue Blood matron is young, and the Yellowlegs crone's like a dusty old bitch always. No wonder they're so mad.
I
They're
mean,
like, "We are described as solidly built,
if
and we're dusty and old."
I'm a little confused, to be honest. If they're immortal, how do you get to be an old crone? Like, if you don't really
Do you think they come
age.
out, crone?
No.
I don't know.
I don't know. They must be ancient, is all I can think. Back to Manon, she realizes that she didn't just walk into a meeting, she walked into a trial. She's accused of murdering a Yellowlegs witch for no reason beyond her own pride. And because that witch was part of the heir's coven, it's a crime against Iskra herself. Oh no.
Oh no. Manon doesn't deny that she killed Iskra's sentinel, but she does deny wrongdoing, and she sticks to the story of that witch went rogue and wanted to kill Dorian for herself. So it was like, what is it called when you defend self defense?
Yep,
Self
yes.
defense.
It was a self-defense. But also it's a crime against an heir.
hmm
You know, like the sentinel should have recognized, like, you don't come up
Oh yeah,
against
that
me,
not just an
period.
heir. I'm your wing leader.
Bitch, step back.
Which I mean, she didn't actually. We're like making an argument against a fake story that she made up.
I mean, I'm just saying Manon could have used any of these things to flex and
Yeah.
be like, no, I don't think so. Petra speaks up, asking Manon if she sees her as an enemy or a rival.
And Manon answers honestly, she is a situationship ally, but always a rival.
When Petra asks why Manon saved her during war games, she says this is what this is gonna make me tear up. She says because Keely fought for you as she died, and she didn't want that death to be wasted.
And that day, it was Iskra who tried to kill Petra and her wyvern. Her wyvern killed Keely. And instead of letting her die, Manon risked her life to spare Petra. Why would she do that, then later on turn on the Yellowlegs? Like, Iskra is clearly a bitter, power hungry bitch who wants the wing leader parking space.
The
Like,
fu-
if you, and that's actually not, I mean, that part is true,
yeah,
but it's nice that Petra is, and I
calling
know
her
that she
out.
has like a life debt, and their witches seem to be really big on life debt. But yeah, she's kind of a really strong ally here.
And also Petra never really got to like not lash out, but
Like
like
claim her because like
vengeance against
yeah,
Iskra for what she did to Keely. Like,
because Iskra claims that that was like an accident,
well, and
but
then Petra was kind of in mourning for Keely because
yeah.
they were so bonded, so she didn't really get her chance to like come at Iskra.
Well, Petra is the least Iron Teeth of the Iron Teeth witches because the fact that she even mourned Keely is something the other witches would have been like, oh,
Yeah, it's
embarrassing.
allegedly surprising that she cared. The final decision falls to Manon's
Which
grandmother.
should be a relief. Like, oh, my grandmother is going to
Even
decide.
just the fact that Manon has that thought, like, oh, it'll be okay. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Grow up,
You
girl.
know that she's a
Yeah.
terrible person. What's wrong with you? Instead, her grandmother demands blood for blood from Asterin.
And that's when we switch POVs. It's always when it's like,
I mean, it's to be not fair, but like it's not an unreasonable request considering.
what? To
But
kill Astrid?
okay, well, if I just calm down a second, not because it's
She's her
Asterin.
second. And this girl wasn't she just some bitch?
No, half of Iskra's personal coven is gone, so she's asking for a sentinel, which is not an unreasonable with the way that they're
Whose
very
side
like.
are you on?
Will you let me finish?
No.
It has nothing to, okay. It is not unreasonable in that they do like an eye for an eye kind of thing and then move on. That's how they dole out their punishments.
Yeah.
But it is different because we know what a grudge her grandmother has against Astrid.
No, that's true.
Thank you for letting me finish.
Your defense rest.
Thank you. I'm not saying it's acceptable. I'm just saying
No, you're
it
right. In
doesn't
the
sound
context of the story, it
unreasonable for her to
actually
ask
is,
that.
yeah.
But she has that gleam in her eye, like, I'll get Astrid dead one way or another.
Like killing two birds kind
Yeah.
of thing.
She's always had it out for Astrid, especially when Astrid showed back up.
Well, it just sucks because she has it out for Astrid. Why? Because she had a stillborn baby? Like, can you imagine blaming someone for that?
But
What the fuck?
it's really shitty, but she also seems to have a bit of, like, not have it out for Manon, her own granddaughter, but the minute Manon questioned, it was like, all right, game over.
Yeah.
I'm going to not watch your back anymore.
Well, and it was, who was it? Was it Petra? No, it was the Kraken witch who told Manon in the Air of Fire that was like, your grandmother's scared of you. And that's what this really is. Like, she sees in Manon, like, honestly, what she doesn't have. Like, Manon is a leader, not because people are scared, but because people want to fight for her. And that's something Manon's grandmother will never have with her rusty teeth.
I mean, Manon has the strongest coven in all of the Iron Teeth. That's why she's wing leader.
But the 12 sounds so fucking stupid.
Ugh, you're right.
Is it ever gonna? We already have all of our branding.
The 13 makes so much more sense. It does.
But switching POVs to Aelin, she, Aedion, and Lysandra are hauling ass for Skulls Bay, where she told Dorian to take Rowan. Nope. Dorian's not taking anyone anywhere.
Bless his heart.
Where she told Rowan to take Dorian.
Along the way, they pass abandoned farms and starving people, her people. A voice in Aelin's head whispers, you did this. A voice that sounds a hell of a lot like Darrow.
She starts leaving gold pieces, but she stops by the time that they reach the ancient port city of Ilium a week later. Because it started, I guess, to feel more like a bribe, not to her people, but to her own conscience. But again, like, these people are struggling, so they probably do appreciate the gold coins.
I mean, this is that martyr syndrome we've talked about multiple times. Like, you didn't do this. The King of Otterland did this.
Yeah.
Erewhon did this. Like, yeah, she could have done things a little differently when she was in Rifthold, but she was also still a child and surviving. Like, she takes on, you can feel guilt for not doing something, but she takes on way too much burden with that. Like, she's putting more on her shoulders than is, like, realistic or reasonable.
You know what makes me mad is thinking about those two chests of jewelry and gold that they were like, we don't even want these. She could have been passing this shit out along her way. I don't know if that's smart though.
What?
Just like passing out stuff like that.
Well, it's not fixing the bigger issue. And, like, you know, if there's not food to be had because Otterland has burned our fields or done something horrible, like, what's the gold going to do for me?
Well, did you ever watch the show Southland?
No.
I don't know if I've ever met anyone who's ever watched Southland, but it was such a good, like, cop drama. I don't even know where it aired. It was like maybe one season, maybe 2 seasons, but it had the guy who was Ryan on the OC.
Okay.
And he was a cop. He was like a new cop. And there is this episode where I can't remember if it's a detective. Someone gives a homeless man really nice sneakers.
Okay.
And at the end of the episode, they find that guy's body with no shoes. And it's like what he was trying to do to help this guy ended up. Oh, and you know what? That also reminds me of?
Getting him killed. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So if anybody's watched Southland, let me know. That was a very good show. It also had the guy from The Walking Dead that was big with the red hair. You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't really watch Walking Dead. I'm sorry.
What the fuck? I met him at like Nashville Comedy Festival or something, and he kind of touched my lower back for a picture, and he was like very low. Whatever.
Okay.
I was like, what are we? But what was I also going to talk about?
I don't know.
Southland. Oh no.
There's a big connection. You
Walking
wanted to tell
Dead?
us something.
I had a thought.
Something about somebody getting killed for somebody's act of kindness, or they tried to help.
I don't know.
I'm sure it'll come to you soon.
Okay. Fuck. That was I bet it was going to be really smart and deep.
I know it would have been because it would have been you.
I'll think of it in the shower. Thank you.
Share it with us later because we do need to know. Ilium is surrounded by white walls and rises between the sea and the flowing river. It's as ancient as Terrace in itself, but hasn't been forgotten because of the Temple of the Stone built around the very rock where Brandon Galathinius.
It's very
Plymouth
Plymouth
Rock.
Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you ever been to Plymouth Rock?
Yes.
It's just a rock.
It is weird because everything is built around it, and you just kinda, like,
Yes, it's so
look over and you're
stupid.
like, "Oh, there's a rock," which we
But
don't
you
even know if
have
it's
to see
really
it.
the rock.
But it's like there are so many sites that you have to go see, and it's like that TikTok audio, like, "Okay, let's go." Like, you see it, and then you're like, "Got it."
I've seen it. Yeah. That's literally what this is. It's allegedly, like, the very rock where Brandon Galathinius took his first step onto the continent. The first king of Terracin and Aelin's ancestor, he placed his foot on the continent before sailing up the Flooring to found Orinth. So it's the very beginning of his journey.
Legend says that it used to be the stronghold of the Mycenaeans until they were banished 300 years ago. And the Mycenaeans were crime lords until their fleet helped win a war and they were turned legit, like in thank you. Thank you for helping us. And they were turned into like not
Privateers.
noblemen, but yeah, like and then they were exiled centuries later because they refused to help Terracin in another war. And then after that, they vanished. And there's this prophecy that says when the last of the Mycenaean sea dragons died, because they were heartbroken to be banished from Terracin, the Mycenaeans were truly lost. So they've completely vanished. No one knows where they are, but only when the sea dragons return will they return. So that's like just a little something to keep in the back of your
Yeah.
mind. And so, like, one, it makes me think of the dead men in Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Like they were, if you, they were like the green ghost.
Yeah.
So they were men of the White Mountains, and they were cursed to remain in Middle Earth by Isildur after they abandoned their oath to aid him in, I think it was the War of the Last Alliance. So the curse was basically you can never rest until your oath is fulfilled, which they did when they helped Aragorn. And then that whole story, Tolkien was inspired by the wild hunt in Norse mythology, which is mentioned by Lanthus and Akatar.
Wow.
Anyway, but also it's an alternative name for Troy, and the Mycenaeans were a Bronze Age civilization in Greece. And so in the Trojan War, the king of Mycenae, Agamemnon, led an attack on Troy because of Paris and Helen. Like we all know that story. And then it trickled down to us seeing Brad Pitt's butt in the movie. But
Yes.
anyway, it's just like, I don't even know if anything made sense what I just said. One, it reminds me of the ghost in Lord of the Rings, but
It
then it's also like the name of this port town in Throne of Glass is the same name that was used for Troy,
yeah.
who also had a similar sounding name for people.
But, like, Sarah does a really good job of, like, there will be random names for things that you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is a real city. These were real
Mm-hmm.
people. Like, this is
And
a
Troy
real
was real.
person."
They've like they found Troy. They don't know if there would have been a war for 10 years. Like they don't it's probably been dramatized,
Yeah.
but it I mean, something really happened. There really was a war and there was a Troy.
It's just so neat because, like, it's just these Easter eggs, like, nothing means nothing. There's all
Mm-hmm.
it always, like, refers to something else, and then you find out what the true history of the name is, and it still correlates with the story. You're like, "Wow, that's cool."
And that was a very good time in Brad Pitt's life. Like he looked
He looked
so
great.
good. He's like longer blonde hair. He was tan. He has that bubble butt.
So fit. Well, moving away from Brad Pitt's butt, unfortunately, disguised as two really attractive pilgrims, Aelin and Aedion ride into Ilium, which is under occupation by Otterlin.
The Lord of Meh, Roland Haviliard's father, saw what happened in Rifthold, and he decided to shoot his shot here.
It seems to have worked out for him.
And I guess I mean, when we talk to a certain someone and he says something about the little folk delivering a message, you're like, okay, I guess that's how they knew to go there. But it's almost like they saw the future because some things that they warn her about or like their gifts allude to, those events haven't happened yet. Or I don't know how they could possibly know them. You know what I'm saying?
Aelin, when Aelin references it, she makes it seem like there was something that the little folk had seen
Yeah.
that they were
It's really
basically
interesting.
telling her about. Aedion asks if whatever she has planned is a message to Otterlin or to Darrow.
And it's about freeing her people, but also like with Erewhon tearing down that glass wall in Rifthold, symbols are powerful. Like this temple is a symbol. And Adian, if you remember in Air of Fire, he said something similar about the Sword of Orinth to Kael when he's talking about how he had to get it back
Mhm.
and why it was so important.
It kills me at first how there's another moment where Adian is, "We should do this. This goes better." And you're like, "Why is Aelin not just communicating with him?"
Well, and it's
I know eventually she does, and I know it's hard for her, but you're like, "Come on."
Adian is the seasoned warrior
He's
general.
the tactician.
If you're like, she has built this court of people, like not only people that she loves, but everyone's kind of like top of their game. Like we have a
Yeah.
shapeshifter, we have a 500-year-old Fey Prince, we have the leader of the Bane. Why are we not utilizing?
Like,
Why isn't this more of a group project?
yeah, it's okay. I mean, because clearly whether Lysandra knows what's going on or not, she's showing her support for everything Aelin says. She's
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, girl. Yeah." So, like,
I love it when she's in her animal form and like Aylin's making a point and Lysandra's like clicking her beak, like, yeah.
or like fluffing her wings, like, yeah, like it's just like she's huffing along, like, totally. There was also that little clue from the little folk outside of the tavern where she met the Lords of Terrasen, leading them in this direction.
And keeping her promise to try to be more open about like all this plotting she has going on. Aelin does let Adian in on her deeper goal, and she wants to reclaim Brandon's landing point and to make the King's Flame bloom again. When it blooms, it's seen as like a divine sign of Terrasen's true monarch. Like if it blossoms for her, Darrow can't deny her claim. And I think that for Orlin, it only bloomed once.
Yeah, but he'd been, like, king for at least, did they say 10 or
Hmm.
20 years? Like,
But
it
it was
wasn't
that
like an
big of a
immediate
deal.
thing.
But it was like that big of a deal to have one single flower. So like
Yeah.
imagine if she were to make it bloom.
Yeah, it would have to be soon, though. We're not waiting another 10 years.
But like you were saying, it's an interesting power dynamic with Aelin and Adian. Like she is his queen, but Adian has the experience, and like Aelin doesn't have any experience in warfare,
Yeah.
in strategy. He's the general. And the more that they disagree, or they're not even as much disagree, but that she doesn't listen to him or include him in plans, like more of a rift is gonna form.
I mean, because like, even if we disagree, you're not showing that you have any faith in
It's like,
me.
do you respect me as
Yeah, you're not giving me any credit. It's like belittling whether she means it to or not, or even it's just you're not sharing with me, and I'm supposed to be your cousin. I'm your
Mhm.
family. There's so much
I'm supposed I
here.
could have been your husband.
Yeah, let's go into that.
Let's not take it off the table.
Nothing's official yet. Somewhere between Rifthold and Skull's Bay, Rowan is explaining to Dorian how important it is that he eats to replenish his magic after
You
it
do
was
not have to
drained.
tell me twice.
First in the attack, then in healing him after he was hit by the poisoned barb of a wyvern tail.
And Dorian is like Aelin when she arrived in Windland, or like he knows less because I know it wasn't fully embraced when Aelin was a child, but she was around magic when it vanished. She had a foundation. Dorian is starting from scratch, but not only that, his magic on top of that is rare. So like even if he were to as a kid have his magic, like who would have taught him about
I
it?
was gonna say magic had been banned in Otterland like 10 years before the wall or the walls, the towers went up.
Hmm.
So he really would have no experience even just seeing it in others. Dorian and Rowan have a little bonding moment over the losses of Sorsha and
A
Lyria.
little trauma bond. I Most of my bonds are trauma bonds. But can we talk about like I don't know if I just haven't picked up on it or it just I didn't retain it in previous rereads, but Dorian is saying that his magic felt the bond between Aelin and Rowan, like a bond that goes deeper than blood or their magic. And he assumed they were mates and just hadn't announced it. Like
Mhm.
baby girl clocked it. But now he's thinking because he's hearing Rowan talk about his mate, Lyria, and he's like, I guess they aren't mates.
How
It's
could
just in this moment, it's like he sees it.
but, like, that makes me question, like, can anybody with magic see bonds between
What is
people
he?
like
But
that?
even Dorian doesn't know anything about his magic. What do you mean you saw a bond?
What are you seeing?
What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
How do you see this? What does it mean? Because it's not like he's scenting something different about them. Like, what yeah. I just
That
have
makes
more
me want to like
questions.
cover myself of like, what can you see? Like when if I were an Akatar, when Lucian walked in a room, I'd be like, no, I don't know what his mechanical eye can see because you
Or
know that he can.
would you?
Well,
Like,
you know what's interesting is that Lucian would have seen through the glamour
mhm,
when Feyre first went to the spring court to bring it down just to like get back at an ex. It's interesting he didn't say anything.
mhm, yeah.
Hmm,
Dorian wonders what his people will think of him fleeing. Has he just handed the kingdom over to Erewhon? I mean, yes. What were you going to do?
kind
Stand there
of.
by yourself? What does he even do from here?
It's like when Darrow was asking Aelin, "What are you going to tell your people about your time as Otterland's assassin and the King's champion?" And she says the truth. Dorian left to go find help. And I mean, say Dorian stayed and he continued fighting, he would have eventually been drained and killed, or worse, caught and collared. And on top of that, Rifthold would have been like a magical battleground between the witches and him.
Yeah.
And Dorian and Aelin have to make painful choices, but they are making them to save people in like the long game, long term.
I mean, for how young they both are to be making those
It's
kind of
actually
like,
insane.
yeah, it's a very mature decision to be like, I hate the name calling. I hate that you're cruel to me right now. But I'm really is a bigger picture here that they're somehow able to see instead of the older people around them, which it's just really impressive.
Mhm.
You're, like you said, longer game, bigger picture. You're doing so much more right now, Dorian. Like we talked about last week, the Pirate Lord is an advantageous ally for Aelin and Dorian, and in theory, he has motivation to choose their side. In addition to the money, I mean, these are pirates. The
Mhm.
Dead Islands were once overrun with General Narek and his Bog forces. After they attacked Mistward and were killed by Aelin, Rolf claimed or reclaimed Skull's Bay.
So if Dorian can convince Rolf he's not like his father, but more importantly, promise them money and free reign to loot Erewhon's ships, which would be like they would get to keep what they get in the looting, but also a little bit of revenge,
Uh huh.
then they would have an armada in the south. Like they don't really have anything right now, so an armada would be great. But
Yeah.
what I love about Baby Girl, and this is what Rowan respects too, is he's willing to admit how lost he is in all of this. Like he's lost as a king and he's lost with his magic and he's just very like I don't know how to describe it other than he's like lost at sea.
Well, even like being trained to be a king, he's learning about politics
He
and
learned other
trade.
languages and how to like remember how good he is at eating with his fork and knife like a little
Yes.
dainty girl
But learning about trade does not prepare you for war and, like, really, like,
and go and convince a pirate lord to be on your
oh
side.
my gosh, like, he's learning to be a tactician and strategist by watching others. So, like, this is a new opportunity he didn't have before because he was definitely kept out of those meetings with his dad.
He has a little bit of imposter syndrome too, like Kale.
Yeah. I mean, like, anytime you had to step into a role you're not prepared for, how could you not? But even just asking for help with his magic, that's something that Rowan says he can
Yeah.
help with at least, as much as he can.
Well, we love a mentor mentee dynamic. So the question is, who is the power bottom, Dorian or Rowan?
Definitely
Dorian.
Dorian.
Okay.
Baby girl. When Dorian points out that Rowan taught Aelin, he says, "It's different. Aelin is my heart."
Oh, it worked because they're magic. I just, in this moment, if I were Dorian, I'd be like, okay, so y'all are mates, right?
I know. Like,
It's like Rowan gets so close to the point and then just like circles the drain.
like, how could he admit that about Lyria, though?
I
Like,
know.
They just had a trauma bond. So Dorian's like, I'm not going to touch that.
Well, and it also maybe he's thinking it's the Karanom
I mean,
bond.
they do have another bond and they've, like,
There are multiple bonds at play.
done magical things with it. So
But he says that their magics understood each other, their souls understood each other.
that's not
But
Karanom.
no, it's not. But Dorian isn't like other girls. He needs someone who understands his magic to train him. But in the meantime, Rowan can help with the basics like controlling, spiraling down into your power bottom.
Rowan tells Dorian he'll find his way, and the two continue their journey to Skull's Bay.
All of these characters are on separate, but honestly, very similar journeys. Like it's all about healing. In the same way that Kaol needs to heal internally before he can heal externally, Dorian has to let go of guilt and shame over what happened to Sorsha and Kaol, his father, like all the trauma of being possessed by a bog prince. He has to heal internally so that he can master his magic and be a good king, which what he wants to be. And I just love this scene with Rowan and Dorian because we haven't gotten much of Dorian really since book 1. And I
Yeah.
fucking love Dorian. Like I
Oh.
missed him. But just like thinking back on this character, how many other men do we know who would have been rejected as honestly brutally as Dorian was at the end of book 1? And then he's still her friend. He still takes up for her.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped aside when it like broke his little heart to give Aelin and Kaol their chance at happiness. Like Dorian wants to be a good king. He wants to control his magic. His face card never declines. I don't know how Dorian turned into this sweet, kind, loyal, romantic boy, a literal demon as his father, absentee mother. Like, I don't want to go completely like in this essay, I will.
But I mean,
I
like,
just
it's
love Dorian. And I feel like I was
yeah.
pretty harsh on him the last couple of books just because we kind of lost him.
Yeah, but, like, even just, like, earlier when he was contemplating, "Could I be part Vogue?" thinking about his dad being possessed, I'm like, "We would never question that." Just, like,
No.
look at all
I
the
mean,
things you just
Holland,
listed.
maybe. Little tiny terrorist in his
Something is off with Holland.
well, I don't know. If you grew up being carried around in a tiny glass throne, you might also not be grounded.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. There are just so many big personalities, and, like, so much has happened that Dorian's kind of been shoved to the back, and, like, literally in his own body, he was shoved to the back, and I just want Dorian to be we're starting to see Dorian be more present, to voice his opinions, to even have opinions,
Mhm.
and it's kinda the same way I feel with Lucian and Akatar. Like, I miss sassy book 1 Lucy, and they turn into such sad boys, but they're great characters, and, like, I'm just glad that we got this scene with Road and Dorian, a little positive masculinity moment. I was moved to tears, they were running down my legs. And don't come after me, anyone out there. We haven't gotten much personality from Rowan before this. Before this book, I love Rowan. Sometimes this fandom can be a prison and you fear speaking your truth. Before now, we didn't get a lot of personality from Rowan. He was protective. There was something going on with Aelin, but we didn't see much else from him.
Well, we heard things from Aelin that Rowan had told her, but we weren't present for the telling of any of it.
Yeah.
So even then, we didn't know how he told the stories, what he talked about. Like, we didn't get a lot of that. So I understand.
The story is just getting so fucking good. I love Dorian and I love Rowan, and I'm so glad that we're getting more from those characters. And then when we're switching our focus to Tower of Dawn, we get more from Nezrin, which I love. And these characters are so, what's the word? Like fleshed out. Like they're just so well developed in
Yes.
this series. But to switch our focus to Tower of Dawn, we're going to talk about chapters 4 through 7, where we immediately get a huge reveal because Irene fucking Towers has re entered the chat. And we knew it was. Like, we've talked about it being Irene, but this is the first time that it's like the
She's here.
healer is named.
And I have to just say, like, before we get into it, I love the sass we get from Irene because
I
when we
do
saw her
too.
in like Assassin's Blade, I mean, she'd been cowed. She was in a very
Yeah.
dangerous situation. She was not safe. And here we see her more in her element and she's like, mm-mm-mm. And I love this for her.
Well, she's taken this oath that she has to help people, but she's like, I don't have to be nice to them.
Yep.
Because and her reasons are valid, and we will get into it. But here's this guy who, like, you didn't actively participate in this shit, but that guy signed your checks and you and Dorian didn't do anything about it. You know, and I
This
don't, and then I play devil's advocate. I'm like, what could Dorian have done that wouldn't have just landed him, being killed or like Kale being killed, but still.
Yeah, they just didn't question enough, and it's very hard. But even Irene has a moment later where she's looking at an acolyte who's just homesick and crying, and she's
Mhm.
like, "Bitch, you don't know what I went through."
You
And
don't know
that's
suffering. I have a chip on my shoulder
yeah,
like that where when people complain, I'm like, you don't even know,
it's
which
not
isn't fair. You can't compare traumas.
yeah, it's not the acolyte's fault by any means, but like Irene has had time to like become safe, to come into her own and like
Mhm.
grow as a person and as a character. And so these are just little things she's still working through.
It's like when you see girls at Coachella. I saw this video of this girl who was complaining about her tent, something about her $10,000 tent, and I was like, "Shut the fuck up."
We are not your target audience
I
for this
think it was the
conversation.
showers didn't come with as many amenities as last year or something, and I was like,
You're showering while you're out there? That sounds great.
I know what's actually like if you've never been to the Coachella like that. The Stagecoach is the same place where Coachella is. It's just like the yeehaw version of Coachella. It's very nice, but you get what you pay for. So,
Uh-huh.
like, if you're just in car camping, that's what you get. You get a parking space, and like, there's always lines for the showers, but then, like, every time you upgrade, you get a little bit more.
Mhm.
And but like, I read that 60% of Coachella tickets were bought using basically Afterpay.
Oh,
So that
man.
means people were paying 10,000 plus for a weekend And I mean, yeah, you get to see amazing concerts and, like, it's very fun, but I just can't imagine. I mean, I say that as someone who's going to a vampire convention, but
I
it
know,
didn't
but,
cost
like,
me
it's
$10,000.
yeah, I don't have the kind of, like, what's what I'm looking for, savings for that, like, that's
I wor like, are we
a lot.
old where we worry about, like, do you got like, does anybody have a savings account? Like, are you worried about this? But then there's also, like, you need to live. I don't even know why I started talking about Coachella, but
Uh,
yeah,
oh,
it's
people, like just, like, some girl was
comparing
venting about her
traumas, yeah.
$10,000 tent, you're like, "Okay, that's not reasonable."
And then there are snakes.
I don't wanna be in the desert. I don't feel safe in a tent, like, anybody could cut through that with a knife and come for me, like, I'm just not interested.
We did that in the Smoky Mountains, though. Remember we did the Gatlinburg? That we didn't have a lock, it was just a tent and a zipper.
Yeah, we're pretty worried about spiders too, like, it's just
Well, there were
I
spiders,
know, I hate spiders.
and you slept on a cot.
Yeah, thank you for that. The other girls took the bed, and I was like, "Sure, I'll take the cot." It's okay, it worked out. Quick refresh on Irene. Irene is from a family of healers who lived in Finn Harrow. Her mother was killed by soldiers following the disappearance of magic and subsequent genocide of magic wielders. Irene lived with family on a farm, and when she was around 18 years old, she left to follow her dream of enrolling at the Torre Chesme.
She had run out of money by the time that she hit this port town, Inish, and she started working at the White Pig, where it is impossible to save money. She needed the money to cross the sea, but her asshole boss, Nolan, had this like predatory rent hikes. And so she was never able to save money.
Yeah, and the barmaid was like working with him to
God,
like
Jessica?
just no, it wasn't Jespa.
It
Mm,
was something
I've
like
drawn a
that.
blank on her name, but it just like
Jessel?
no, Irene
She's
couldn't
a real
win.
housewife of New York.
Oh,
Never
okay. No,
mind.
they made it so difficult for her. We met Irene and the assassin and the healer when Selena Sardathian traveled through Innis en route to the train with the mute masters in the Red
I
Desert.
think you mean slither around
Ugh, pretty
with the Mute
much.
Master. Selena saves Irene from an attack in an alley, then teaches a little impromptu self defense class. And I love that we see some of the things that Selena taught her in this book. Like you'll see Irene when she's having an argument, she kind of spreads her feet out, like distributes her weight, and that's something that Selena taught her, like a defensive stance. And I say Selena, I know that it's Aelin.
But it was Selena to her.
Yeah, in that moment it was Selena.
Well, it's also interesting, like, they have this interlude, like, these things that happen with Selena Irene are just one night, and it
It's
does
crazy.
totally change the course of Irene's life
Mhm.
because it gives her direction, it gives her
You're
funds,
welcome, Kale.
but it's like, how much Irene internalized from this one night alone is
Right.
crazy. You know, like, even when you're reading it, like, it's important, but, like, there are things that I didn't even know would be important that would come
Aylin's
up
not
later
thinking
for
about it.
Irene. Yeah, like, it's so much of a bigger deal for Irene than, like, you necessarily realize when you're reading the initial story. When Irene was treating Selena's wounds, she confesses that her dreams were for attending the Torre Chesme.
And she was treating, I think that's right after Arabin beat the shit out of her because of everything that happened in Skulls Bay. And she talks
Yeah.
about it being the worst off she's ever been.
Well, and Selena also had to protect her in the alley from those men. Do you remember, like,
Yes. But
Irene
then
was
she
out there
kind of
at
lets,
middle of the night feeding street urchins. You're like, "This doesn't feel like a smart time to be in a
oh
back
yeah.
alley."
But it was like a one of those scenes they've talked about a couple times where it's like you feel a thread in the tapestry being
Mhm.
pulled. Irene was part of that tapestry. And the biggest one would be Aelin not killing Manon, like feeling that gut instinct of there's something bigger at play. After Selena leaves for the Red Desert, and that side quest is also gonna. It's so amazing how many things from Assassin's Blade come up again because
All
the
of them.
Red Desert. But after she leaves, Irene finds a coin purse full of money and a golden brooch to help her get to the southern continent, of which she needs it to help get to the southern continent. But when she dumps everything on the table, the healer on high or whatever is like,
Oh.
it's free.
I know, it's so sweet though because, like, now she, like, has funds for herself, like, she's planning to give it all away just to be there, and the healer's like, "It's okay." There's also a note that's included that says, "The world needs more healers," a note that Irene still keeps in her pocket.
That she uses to like ground herself. Like you
Yeah.
see her when she's talking to Kale, I can't even like it. I don't know how to describe that. Like it's
The way it all connects is
yes,
amazing.
it's like Kale is in this position where he can only be helped by this one person that Aelin put there.
Uh-huh.
and that he doesn't know that she is holding a note written by Aelin. Like, it's just crazy to me.
But even when Kale's having those moments of like, how do I explain Aelin to the Cog? And this is Aelin's fault. Aelin is saving him again,
Yes.
like unknowingly, but just
Mhm.
with Irene's presence. It's another time Aelin is
She
saving
has
him.
saved him, so you're so right.
I know.
But she, like, yeah, she put the only person capable of healing Chaol in this the right place at the right time. Like, it's just crazy.
I know. It's like the way it all comes together is so fun to read. You're like, oh, there it is. There it
This
is.
series is so fucking good.
So fucking good. In the 2 years since Selena and Irene's meet cute, the Silva blessed healer has risen to the top of her class at the Torre Chesme. Healers who have trained their entire lives come to her for advice and assistance, including the healer on high, Hafiza.
And in Islam, a Hafiz is someone who has completely memorized the Quran. So basically, someone with a lot of knowledge you'd go to. And it's also interesting that when we meet Hafiza, she is using the sun to purify vials of liquid. And it's like, I think, to help a girl that has a cough.
Mhm.
And it kind of sets them up as sunshine. Like, the healers are light, so the antithesis of darkness, of like the Vogue. And Irene suggests taking the vials down to a lower chamber and using mirrors to focus the sunshine on them. And mirrors will play like a major role in the series.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that detail, but considering what Manon has already seen from her
Yeah.
grandmother, interesting. Below the Torres healers are the physicians. They're healers, but without magic.
You know, they're so bitter.
I
Probably all
mean,
men.
they did a really good job, like, whenever they established the Torre Chesme, of saying, like, we're not taking everything from them. The physicians are still really important and very helpful. So the physicians are your first line. Like, they occupy the complex around the base of the healer's tower, and like patients come to them first.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to your primary to get a specialist.
Yep.
But it would be frustrating if you were like really sick and you were like, I don't want to go through, I don't want to talk to this fucking guy. Like, take me to the
But
healers.
imagine though if you're a hypochondriac and they're like, no,
Oh, I am. Do
you're
you know
not
how many
wasting their
things I've
time.
diagnosed myself with? Also, Irene Towers, like the tower. Like, she was kind of, we've
It's
talked,
like always destined to
yeah,
be
there's a lot
here.
of destiny in play in this series.
The climate of Antica is dry and hot. That sounds like a nightmare only
It is
because
your nightmare. It
my
reminds
body
me.
does not cool itself well. I overheat easily.
Well, remember when we were in London and our Airbnb did not have, I mean, I know that it's like the norm there not to have air. It was so fun.
The
I think we
UK
were
was
also
having a
on the
heat
train
wave.
tracks. It was so hot.
It was a lot. To help cool buildings, small wind catching towers were built and installed on the buildings, like the roofs throughout the city. They work in conjunction with underground canals. Canals?
Vernon.
A little stroke. They
Canals.
work with the underground canals to cool the air and distribute it throughout the city's lower levels.
My eyes kind of glazed over when I read that because I can't picture
I'm not sure exactly what a
what this
wind catcher
means.
looks like. I can't
A
help but think of
windmill?
like a windmill, yeah.
Or like those, what are those things that spin in the desert?
But
Is
like
that a windmill?
a windmill like helps with electricity that's not actually like sending air
Winding.
down a chute. So I don't know. I'm curious how that works.
Well, unfortunately, the tower predates that invention, and whoever
Unfortunate.
designed the House of Wind must have designed the tower because it's like 1,000 steps to the top.
I mean, like, why not?
Well, speaking of the House of Wind, have you ever wondered how the guests at Starfall are getting to the top? Like, are you telling me everyone's coming in their like nice dresses and they're going up 10,000 steps?
I mean, do they have magic?
But you can't winnow in. It's warded.
I know, but could they have air magic?
I don't know.
Do they have wings? I don't know. Because, like, also, yeah, how
Not
did
in
Amryn get there? Somebody, I mean, I'm sure Cassian or somebody had to go pick her
Well,
up.
that there's only so many Bat Boys, and they're going back and forth and carrying everyone?
And so the Bat Boys are not common in Valaris. So I
No.
don't know.
Well, also think about Reese's dad. Like, he didn't have wings, and he lived at the House of Wind. You can't winnow in, but you could, like, I guess, winnow above the wards and then free fall?
I mean, was he just having Reese's mom carry him everywhere?
Well, every
Like,
time
what?
Moore is there, I'm like, is she winnowing in and then tucking and rolling? Is someone catching her? It's so silly.
these are the kind of details that you shouldn't ask me because I'm spiraling and I like lose
How
track.
did
I'm
they
like,
get up
huh.
there? How?
Now I
There's
have
also that
a weird visual of it.
well, it's like, what do they do with their hands when they're flying? It's things that you
Exactly.
should never think about. There's also a stranger or someone at Starfall. Do you remember that? And I always felt like it was gonna end up being someone.
Green tells Hafiza she's ready to leave the Torre to return to the northern continent to help in the inevitable war between Dorian and Aelin and Parrington.
Haviza asks, what about Prince Caution, who is fond of Irene and could interfere? I don't think he would, but she's saying like he could stop you from leaving. But I don't get that vibe from him.
I can't tell. I feel like, I mean, he's a prince, so they don't really get told no, but I feel like Hafiza was just trying to like
She doesn't
any
want her
angle
to
she
leave.
could to keep her
Yeah.
from leaving. Irene met Caution when she treated one of his servants, and to her surprise, the prince himself stayed at the man's bedside. While she worked on the servant, the two became close, and they stayed close.
Irene also formed a friendship with Hussar and her lover. What was the name of the guy you dated? His mom?
I think it's Raina.
Raina. Raina.
It doesn't look like it with the spelling, but I think it was Raina.
For months, the group spent time together. They liked their own little clique.
Yeah.
And Hafiza took Irene with her to the steps to oversee a healing with Caution as their escort. And something happened. Like, we don't get the full story for a while, but Irene and Caution have barely spoken since.
Irene's kind of playing the avoid game.
Yes.
Hafiza has one task for Irene before she leaves: treat the special guest of the Coggin.
And it is rare for her to pass off a task from the Coggin. So you're like,
Well, considering she's a healer on high, and it's the Coggin, like he is the top, why would she not do it herself?
Well, I think that she has to know Irene is actually more powerful than her.
I think yes, but she's definitely gonna have more experience than Irene. But
Yeah.
also I think that she's like, Irene, you're not done growing yet.
Yeah, it's kind of healing for both of them. Like, you heal him, but in doing so, you're going to have to heal some of that hatred.
Yeah, because the minute she tells more information to Irene, Irene almost kind of shuts down. She's like, nope, nope, I
I
can't do
know,
it.
yeah.
She tells Irene that the man aged 23
That's
suffered.
insane. Kale's 23.
What a Irene
A
is not even
baby.
21. I'm like, you babies. Like,
Babies.
wow.
Babies having babies.
I mean, what is Aelin? Is she 20 yet? I've forgotten. You know,
I think she's 20.
there's been so much that has happened. I'm like, what
I think she
year is
turned
it?
20 when she was in Windland.
I thought she turned.
Because there
Yeah,
was
you're
no
right.
like hawk in a birthday hat, but I'm pretty sure it was mentioned.
You're right. Because yeah, okay. I had a moment where I was like, shoot, how old is everybody? Everybody's very young, naturally.
They're all babies.
But this guy is 23. He suffered an injury to his spine that's left him paralyzed from the hips down.
And she says spines are almost as difficult as brains when it comes to healing. You have to get the brain to start sending signals to the spine down the broken pathways. And that's not even factoring in the time it takes to learn to walk again. So it's also like Haviza is trying to keep her there as long as possible. You're giving me this last task that could take who knows how
Yeah,
long.
weeks
You didn't just ask me
minimum.
to like get rid of someone's cough real quick on my way out.
But even then, she's still kind of like, why does this need to be me?
Yeah.
Well, the man's name is Kael Westfall, and he's the former captain of the guard, and he's the current hand to the new king of Otterlin.
And Irene's like, pass. For obvious and legitimate reasons. Like, even if Kael didn't participate in the genocide of magic wielders, the murder of her mother, the guy who signed his paycheck did. And like, okay, great. Now he works for Dorian, but how long did Dorian live his playboy lifestyle off riches stolen from kingdoms that Otterlin conquered? Like, and I love Baby Girl, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
If you don't know Kael and Dorian, the optics are not great.
Just real quick, where Kael's like, like he's annoyed the Coggin shuts things down because of Aelin. I'm like, look how Dorian's perceived. Don't just come after Aelin with that thought.
Thank you. Yeah, and he's the one who brought down the glass castle. Why is no one talking about that?
Yeah.
Well, Dorian and Kael might not have been directly involved, but they also didn't do anything. Like, and it makes you wonder, would they have ever done anything if Aelin had entered their lives?
I mean, first of all, they didn't even consider the slave labor camps as a problem. The slave labor camps that have children as well. It just didn't even register that was a problem there.
Well, when they were walking through, Kael was like, they're all criminals. They deserve to be
They
here.
still didn't even look at anybody there.
Well,
like they walked through them and didn't like register it as a problem.
I know. And it's like, I was reading Trial of the Sun Queen, and when we meet Prince of the Aurora, And so she has been in this magical prison since she was a child. And she's like, "How could you be okay with that prison?" And he's like, "It's full of criminals." And she's like, "I was a child." It's like there's this cognate what is it? The dissonance?
Yeah, cognitive
Yeah,
dissonance.
they're not even thinking through it.
It doesn't directly affect them, so it doesn't they're not even taking the moment to occur to them that they should consider more.
Mhm.
But, like, even after being there, neither of them considered more about the slave labor camps. Nobody maybe they don't like some of the roughness that Ottoman soldiers are, but they still are not that concerned that they're, like, taking over the continent and
They're
these
just kind of like
poor.
turning their like a blind eye to it just because I guess
Yeah,
that but also like
and now they're
what
using
would
those
they
people
do?
as
What could they
servants.
do? I don't know.
I mean, true, they would have been limited against the king's magic, but they didn't even know that at the time,
Yeah.
and none of it. I don't think that they're bad people, but I think that there's, like, a learned helplessness there. Like, they're like, "Oh, that
Well, it
sucks.
kind
What can
of
I
shows
do?"
that you can be a good person
And do nothing.
and do nothing. Like that you still that doesn't you're not exempt from doing the right thing because you're a good person.
Well, and I mean, look how long it's taken Kale to be able to see how much they weren't doing, because he had a lot of pride, he cared about his job, and he would pat himself on his back that he was, like,
Yes.
doing good, and you're like, "Were you?"
I also love the irony of how much he hated magic and now the only thing that can save him is magic.
Yup. Yeah, so, like, all that to say, we're not trying to, like, take big digs at Dorian and Kale, but it's just this perspective.
Yeah, seeing it from Irene's side, you're like, "Yeah."
It's like an obliviousness that they just, I don't even think they realized they were until everything went sideways. Hafiza tells Irene about a man that she was once asked to heal so he could stand trial for unspeakable crimes. She could have used her magic to make the internal bleeding worse and no one would have known, but then she remembered the oaths she took and the victims who deserved justice.
What did you say this was like?
It's very much like the Hippocratic Oath to, like, do no
No.
harm, and it makes me think of Grey's Anatomy because
Grey's
that's my comfort
Anatomy.
show when Derek does not wanna operate on the serial killer who is on
Mhm.
death row and supposed to die the next week.
I remember that episode.
And meanwhile, like, Meredith has a moment of, like, "Should I let him kill himself? Should I so that we can use his organs for somebody else?" Like,
It's very
Meredith is
similar.
really torn, and
Mhm.
Derek is just like, "Nope." But
Yeah.
I mean, he took an oath to help because the same thing happens as we're talking about Grey's Anatomy. Another inmate comes in, like, she swallowed razor blades so she could get out of solitary, and Christina's like, she's a murderer and doesn't wanna do anything.
Yeah, I remember that too.
And Dr. Bailey, they have a moment where they have to, like, think through why they do what they do and how you can't pick and choose. If you're gonna be a healer, you're a healer, period.
Next week on Grey's Anatomy. When Irene asks why she can't heal Kale herself, the healer on high, she says that it's a soul wound. And she's obviously talking about Kale and Irene because this is a very like why she speaks a lot in like double entendres. Like it's you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's also important because she points out Irene wants to go back to help in a war, and she's like, "Are you just gonna, like, stomp all over any
Yeah,
Otterlonian
are you
soldiers that are
going to
down?
like walk right over them?
Are you only gonna help specific people? Are you
Mhm.
only gonna help who you see as being the good people, or are you
Yeah.
here to help, period?" It gives her a lot to think about, and
Mhm.
she has to, like, really struggle with it. Irene agrees to meet with Kale to assess him tomorrow, then she'll decide if she wants to heal him.
And the next morning, Kale and Nezrin nervously await the healer. Nezrin is on edge, not just about Kale and the alliance that they're sent here to secure, but she's also worried about her family back in Rifthold. And it's kind of not selfish of Kale because he is worried about Nezrin, but his mind only went to Dorian.
Yeah,
I don't think he gave a second thought to anyone else in Rifthold.
but he never has.
Well, that's the problem with it when he was always in Aylin's face of like, who's going to protect the people, the regular people? You don't give a shit about Rifthold, do you?
There was never, like, a real plan there, and it's still, like, I wouldn't say he doesn't care about any of the people, but it's still only
It's
Dorian he's
just
thinking
that's the
about.
real love story. Why aren't we talking about how Kale and Dorian should have been in game?
Dorian has some fucking powerful magic. Let's worry about the regular people that you were so worried about before.
Kale would never bottom ever.
No, it wouldn't work out. Maybe. I don't know. Seems like he has a
I
little
don't
freak in
think he
there.
would because I think he'd be like, I'm a man.
Also, based on how we're seeing things now, potentially you're definitely correct. Poor Nezrin, though, like, you can't, I mean, he's there to get healed, so she's kinda, like, trapped. She's not gonna leave him, but, like, you're on the edge of your seat, like, "I need to check on my
Yeah,
family."
and there's also no timeline, like, Irene doesn't give any sort of, like, "Here's the plan." It's just kind of like
Well,
everything is so open-ended, and she's worried about her family, and then she's also having, like, an identity crisis.
there's a lot, well, especially being back in a region that her family is from, where she's accepted and not getting racial slurs and being judged, it would be very hard to still feel the same sympathy and devotion to Otterlin,
Yes.
as you did a few minutes ago. So, like, that's a lot. Poor Nezrin. It's just a lot to have on her shoulders. Kale actually couldn't sleep after their dinner with the royal family, where Argon grilled him on the butchering of slaves in Calacullen and Dovier. Sartak, the only one of the potential heirs other than Caution, sorry, I did it again, guys. The only one of the potential heirs other than Caution that Kale is inclined to like, steered the convo away.
And when he wasn't answering for the atrocities committed by the former king, he was monitoring everyone for black rings or collars because we're really not thinking outside of like,
I'm sure they couldn't hide a ring in anything.
yeah, you know what I'm trying to say? Like he's very like cut like black and white.
It's very literal.
Yes, like okay, I don't see a collar. There's no Vogue here.
Is
You know?
anybody acting suspect? I mean, I'm sure they probably all could be because they're there to
Yeah.
manipulate. It's just they're having so many different thoughts and focuses right now. Kaja, the servant assigned to Kale, helped him dress for dinner, then bed, then brought him
I
breakfast.
love the male servant that was assigned to Nezrin was immediately kicked out and never came back.
He was
So
I just imagine him like huffy in his little see-through shirt, like stomping out the door.
I have to imagine there was a moment like when Kale first met Kaja that something like that was kind of presented to Nezrin.
It had to have been just like
I would have been like, uh?
that.
Because like
Well,
Kale's being very standoffish in
mm,
that regard.
shutting things
So
down. Kale and Nezrin have never been particularly good at talking. They've done everything in this relationship, if you can call it that, out of order.
yeah.
And now she'll barely even look at Kale as they wait for the healer.
And she's also not wearing her captain's uniform, which I think shows you where she is mentally and emotionally. Like, even if it's subconscious, she doesn't want to be yay Otterlin right now.
She just needs a moment of being just Nezrin
Yeah.
to like process everything. When Irene shows up 10 minutes
Yeah.
late, it's her eyes that Kale notices first. She has vibrant golden brown eyes and long brown hair that curls at the
But
ends.
she's wearing those black slippers. Do you remember how bad the black flats that we all used to wear smelled?
I mean, any
There was
shoes
a
probably would.
no, there was a distinct black flats smell.
Yeah, it's like the dye or something that was in there.
Oh,
I can't tell you the last time I wore black flat. Now you're saying that, I'm like, oh God.
no,
Bringing
it
back
was
memories.
like vile.
When Irene looks at Kale, she slips her hand into her pocket.
It's
As we referenced,
crazy.
she's using that note from Aelin again to ground herself. She sits down and starts asking Kale questions. When he hears her accent, he asks if she's from Finharrow.
Because Kale's frontal lobe is developing.
Huh?
Here is this magically gifted woman with a scar across her throat from Finharrow meeting with the current and former captain of the guard of Otterlin. He tells Irene that if she doesn't want to be here, then send someone else.
That's when Hussar walks in and is like, wow, someone's grumpy. And Irene says that she forgot her kava that morning.
And kava is a cup of Turkish coffee.
That sounds fantastic. I love coffee. Hussar tells Kale that Irene healed injuries similar to his. She'll have him back on his feet and able to do his master's bidding in no time.
Then she just blows right back out. Like, I kind of love her.
She came in with a smirk. She just wanted to have her little moment.
Yeah,
Like,
she just has like her little mic drops and then leaves. But it's kind of crazy how much Irene gets away with the royal family.
yeah, she kind of like dismissed her. She's like, all right,
Yeah.
I'll find you later. Go.
Irene asks like your typical medical intake questions like, you know, what's your name? What happened? Where does it hurt? What that dick do? And it works. And she asks about completion and he gets defensive. And that's when she's like, mm-hmm. And she writes something down, which is kind of weird because when we go back and we look at what she's writing, you're like, that's what you were writing in that moment. But it is funny that Kale is like, what the fuck are you writing? And she says, a giant no. Like she is sassy and no one has been sassing Kale lately. Like, we've talked about how important it is to humble Kale.
I mean, it's like, it's not even just like a giant no. She's like underlining it.
No.
I mean, yeah, when you go back and read what she was writing, like, I guess it was her way of, like, keeping herself
Or
calm.
was it, like, subconscious where, like, she's in her anger just, like, writing these names down? But, yeah, the fact that she's talking about completion and writing that down, I'm like, "What?"
No. When she apologizes to Nezrin for having the misfortune of sharing his bed, Kale's like, "Did I do something to you?"
And that kind of brings her back to reality, kinda, like, snaps her out of it a little bit.
Mhm.
Irene gets back to the examination, and it's similar to the one that Rowan gave him back at the castle. And Nezrin explains the initial injury was his entire spine, but a friend, Rowan, healed as much as he could after Kale received a magical blow to his back.
Irene instructs Kale to lie face down, ass up on the bed.
And Nezrin is hovering, like she immediately starts wheeling him into his room, which is a theme that we're going to see Nezrin doing things for Kale that he's capable of doing himself. Like she's trying to help, but he already feels helpless and he needs like this level of autonomy.
Yeah, and poor Nezrin, she just needs to be doing something so
Yeah,
she's
she just
not
wants to help.
focusing on her family that she doesn't know how they are. Irene watches as Kale waves off Nezrin and pulls himself onto the bed. For a few moments, his legs shake with spasms, which Irene says are common with spinal injuries.
Irene examines his back, and there's a mark where the king's magical load hit. And I don't know why, but I think it is so funny. So, like, Kale has seen the mark because Dorian taught him the two mirror trick. And I'm like, that had to have been for Dorian to look at the back of his hair. Like, why else would Dorian have been doing the two mirror trick?
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Cause
Like,
like
what else have
men
you been?
don't care.
No, Dorian's looking at the back of that hair, which what's going on in the back of my hair is none of my business. He
Yeah.
must have, before he left every morning, been like, let's check.
Yeah, he didn't want to have a ballot, so he's probably making sure it turned out okay. Irene's magic tells her what struck Kale was a terrible power. It rippled down his spine, shredding and severing. That sounds awful.
Well, the fact that what Rowan was able to do is actually amazing. I
Yeah.
don't know if Kale's giving enough credit to Aelin or Rowan.
Yeah. But that, I mean, yeah. I was going to almost defend Kale and that he doesn't know enough about magic to even begin to understand, but like we'll just leave that there. Irene then asks him to use those abs
Oh,
to
she
turn
notices
over,
those
and
abs.
she pokes and prods him all over. She's moving down to the V of muscles, and then she keeps going lower. Like, I really had a moment, I was like, girl, are we going to do
What
this
are
with an
we doing? Are we
audience?
checking the completion right now?
Is that part of medical training that I missed?
Well,
What are you
Kale is
doing?
very like, "Ugh," and Irene's like, "I forgot how prudish men from the North are." When Kale says everyone seemed plenty dressed at dinner, she says, "Just wait until the parties." I'd be like, "What parties?"
Did you notice your servants? Mm.
Yeah, that's true.
Something's not right there. Irene says that she needs to speak with her superior, and even when Nezrin presses, she won't make any promises about healing Kale or even trying.
After she leaves, Nezrin picks up the paper Irene was scribbling on, and instead of notes, it's a list of names, the final of which has been written several times and underlined over and over again.
Kale is reminded of another healer from Fenharrow, Sorsha. He himself has ridden through Fenharrow and seen the burned and abandoned cottages, owners either enslaved or dead. Hello, Kale. You've seen the destruction. Okay. He thinks to himself, no, Irene Towers will not be returning.
Cut to Irene being like, okay, the former captain is handsome. I'll give him that. But she was filled with so much rage that she subconsciously wrote her mother's name down over and over again, or like the line of women, Towers women, and then the last one, her mother, she just wrote over and over and over again. And she runs up Hafiza's office where an acolyte is crashing out, but like Irene Bustin, can you wrap up your breakdown? Because mine is scheduled for now.
She puts her minty bee on pause and almost resents the acolyte.
Like, oh wow, you think you have it bad? I was a fucking farmer at your age, which just shows how affected by all of this Irene is. Like, she was late, she was rude to a patient, then to an acolyte, and she's usually the one going out of her way to make them feel comfortable. So, like, she's very affected by
Yeah.
Kale's presence. And it's not as much Nezrin, but it's Kale's presence.
It's everything that it represents. Irene waits on the landing outside of the healer on High's office. There are two other doors, one locked that leads to Hafiza's personal workshop and a door to her bedroom.
Every time we say Hafiza, it reminds me of how annoying people say Abitha. But the former is the so like the workshop has an owl carved, and that is Silba's symbol. And you can see it all over the tower. And where else did we see an owl?
Ooh.
I can't remember if we mentioned this at the beginning, but we do occasionally talk about Akatar and Crescent City, and this is one of those times. But in House of Earth and Blood, the door to Griffin Antiquities, which we later learn is hiding the Library of Parthos, it has a set of glaring owl eyes above it. And once we learn some more about Irene, we will go into the potential hypaxia connection, specifically via her tutors.
Mm.
And also think about how hypaxia removed the venom from Bryce's leg. Like it's very similar to what we're going to see with Irene and Kale.
Ooh. All of the acolytes think there's ancient knowledge and devices behind the locked door, but Irene and a few others have been inside, and although some of the tools and furniture are old, there's no hot goss.
While she waits, Irene reflects on her early days at the tower when she eaten in the healer's underground library with only the occasional Bast cat and carved owl for company. In ancient Egypt, Bast was a feline goddess who was often depicted as a cat or a cat headed woman. And she was associated with protection, healing, and the domestic cat, obviously, which was like a revered animal in ancient Egypt. And cats can also link us to other series in the Massverse. Adis first appears to Bryce as a cat. There's a cat like presence that Nesta feels at the library in Silver Flames. And like Irene and Hypaxia, there's more to all of that that we'll talk about when we learn more about the cats.
Other than the cats, Irene's first friend was capital C Cook, who used to sneak her extra sneaks. Irene repaid her by saving her granddaughter last year.
She still stops by once a month to check on her. So again, it just shows how flustered the situation with Kale and his abs made her. Because this is how she treats patients, not how she treated Kale and Nezrin. Like that is not her norm.
When Hafiza asks if Kale will walk again, Irene says yes. It's almost identical to the injury that she healed last winter, but it'll be tricky.
Hafiza's like, you or the healing will be tricky. But Irene thinks if Kale cooperates, she can get him walking again. And she admits how hard it was to look at him and hear his accent, but the fact that the new captain of the guards is from the southern continent was unexpected and tells her she might not know as much about the situation as she assumed. Because she's like, I would not have thought someone from another continent would be able to, and a woman would be
Hmm.
able to hold that level in Otterland. So, like, I guess things have changed.
Something is definitely changing. Kale was a boy when so many of the atrocities were committed, but plenty was done in recent years.
Well, and I don't want to like keep saying it over and over again, but Kale didn't directly participate in like the slave labor camp massacres. He didn't do anything to stop anything. Like he was a magic hating nepo baby mall cop. Like respectfully, but like that's who he was until Aelin came into their lives.
Hmm. Irene tells Hafiza she's never felt anything like what caused Kale's injury. Her magic recoiled and it felt like it was rotted, but she hasn't tried to probe it with her power directly yet.
There's a little bit of a parallel, like with Hafiza saying a good healer knows when to ask for help. And it's like when Rowan was telling Dorian a good king knows when to ask for help. Irene goes to the library to look into spinal injuries and paralysis, and the next day, Nezrin decides to go see her family. It's been years since she's seen her aunt and uncle and their children,
Kale encourages her to go.
and she encourages him to hoe.
Oh.
She brings her face close to his and is like, maybe we should get an answer for the healer on the completion question.
Irene wasn't the only one affected by Kale's muscles.
How good are these muscles?
I mean, just hearing that there's an official V, I'm like, yes.
An official V, a capital V.
Not all men have that tone, so I'm listening.
Is that like genetic? Because sometimes even if a guy is like very fit, he doesn't have it.
I don't know.
They had it at Thunder Down Under.
Oh my God, we watched it flex on
Yeah,
so
that was
many
the
men.
best part. The one that was laying down like on his back and then kind of like brought his hips up.
That was the part that stuck with me.
It did me too. We're changed women. But like he did on the boat, Kale shuts it down and Nezrin leaves. And she's walking through the palace halls and at a crossroads, and she really is at a crossroads, but she finds Sartak, who offers to escort her to the gate. And his long hair is braided and it's like tied with a strap of leather, which just seemed important to note because it sounds very hot.
It does sound kind of sexy. Sartak is on his way out to ride his rook Kadara, who Nezrin knows from the stories about the winged prince she heard all the way in Otterlin. Heard
He's
about
like,
all the way
"Am
in
I
Otterlin.
famous?"
As they walk, they pass a few of the 36 viziers.
36 viziers, 36 gods, 36 cats.
It's a specific number, but it's also a lot. That's a big number.
Yeah.
We get some Sartak lore.
Well, do
When
they kill off a cat when a cat's born?
So there's only 36. I
Yeah.
don't what does this
What's
mean?
going on?
When Sartak was 12, his father took the kids to the mountain Airy. He snuck away and went for a joyride on the captain's rook, and when they chased him down, his father ordered him to live among the Rookin until he could prove he wasn't a complete idiot. He fell in love with riding and with Kadara, who hatched when Sartak was 15, and they've been together ever since.
And Nezrin has a moment where she's like, "Am I really going to ask this guy to take his beloved rook and fight wyverns?" Like, as she's falling more in love with this part of herself, like the people and the culture of the southern continent, her perceptions of Otterlin and its people, like Kale, it's going to shift. Like, she really is at a crossroads and she really is having an identity crisis.
Well, it all just sounds very light and loving. And in comparison, thinking about Otterlin and the wyverns, it sounds very dark and
Mhm. I
foreboding.
mean, but they don't know Abraxos, who is baby boy.
I know, but we don't know if all the wyverns are as sweet as Abraxos.
They're
So
not as
it's
well dressed.
that is so true. Sartak introduces her to the guards at the palace gate, and before they part, tells her if she ever has the time or interest, she should come up for a ride.
He's also like, she has an all access pass, is basically what he tells the guards, which is like a lot of trust.
Yeah,
Like, her, let her come and go whenever she pleases.
yeah.
Kale asks Kaja in his language because, unlike Baby Girl, he skipped his Duolingo lessons. He asked her to go down to the docks and see if there's any news about Rifthold. And on the way, will you DoorDash me to that Dick Argan's room? And he knows that, like, all the servants are basically like, they have one paycheck from the palace and they have other paychecks to people that they're like get feeding info to.
Mm-hmm.
So like, he's assuming that this is going to get back to someone, but it doesn't really matter. Like, of course he's going to wonder what's going on in Rifthold.
Yeah, like what harm is that going to cause? And Argon spends the majority of the time talking about his white peacocks.
I know, it's very specific in peacocks. I looked it up. It can symbolize a lot, like purity, rebirth, but I think here it's just pride and like being out of touch. It's like
Like
when they sent the rich women up into space, like it's just a little out of touch.
it makes me, yeah, it makes me think though also of like Dorian breeding his dogs just because. Like what's Dorian doing
His
with those pups?
bitches.
Yeah, what's he doing with it? Just because. Kale's also like, this guy's talking about prized peacocks when Kim, there's people that are dying.
Well, and we get more flashes of Kale's insecurities, like both physically, because in his mind, he's like, if I could just stand up and look down on Argon, like use my height. But he doesn't have that anymore. And he also has the imposter syndrome. Like, no one taught me about fucking birds. I'm not Aelin or Dorian. I don't give a fuck about these ducks. No one taught me about this.
Kale does not know how to schmooze and small talk.
No.
That's not who he is. Kale wants to know who gave Argon details about the attack on Rifthold.
And this motherfucker pulls a Reese and starts picking at invisible lint. He refuses to tell Kale anything more because, quote, there are far too many eyes watching. And that is said so many times in Tower of Dawn that there are like eyes and ears all over the palace. But it also just like, even talking to Kale sends a message no matter what they discuss. So Argon's like, roll on out of here.
I mean, that's like stressful. Like, how do you spend time in that environment where you're constantly on
Right? I'd
edge?
go live somewhere else.
You can't trust anybody. How do you know your food isn't poisoned? How do you know because you guys all fight to be the next ruler that one of your siblings isn't like paying your personal servant for something? Like
Well,
it
it
just
makes sense why Sartak and Caution live elsewhere for most
Mhm.
of the year. It's like, yeah, I would too.
Yeah, just like it's too much. Kale's gut says though that Argon isn't lying.
And Kale is so good at telling when someone is lying, like, except with Aelin and everyone and everything else. But Kaja does come back and confirm that the attack happened. Not, she doesn't know anything else, but it is real.
Wow. Got a
Thanks.
lot out of that one. Great. Nezrin doesn't return for dinner with the Coggin and his children, but Irene makes an appearance.
And this is probably me way overthinking things. Shocking, I know. But Irene is wearing a gown of amethyst, like the ring that Kale gave Selena. I mean, she only has like 4 dresses total.
Well, her other day dress is light blue. So there's definitely something about her in pastels.
Mhm.
I don't know what it means, but
I look terrible in pastels. I'm too pale.
oh my god, I think they'd be beautiful with your red hair.
Thank you.
Of course. Hussar and Raina greet Irene and kick a vizier out of a seat to give it to her. Argun doesn't acknowledge her. Duva is beaming at her, and her husband is sitting quietly beside her, and Sartak bows his head.
And cautions at half mast. The most handsome of the princes basically calls dibs on Irene, who doesn't seem to be too interested in him, but dibs is dibs. But he
Yep.
kind of like to chaos stakes his claim, his intentions, I
He's
guess.
like, I'm just letting you know, by the way.
Well, and Caution reminds Kale of Book One Dorian, the one that women were falling all over themselves for, the Dorian like before an assassin, before a collar and everything. But I do think it's very cute how he's hyping Irene up. Like he's telling everyone she got the highest grade on her SATs. Like
No.
he's, I don't know why she's not into him. That would have worked on me. We'd already be married. We'd have kids that we'd be killing his siblings.
I'm I know that we'll get more information 'cause I don't remember exactly. It feels like maybe there just wasn't like a click. Like it wasn't like
I'd
a
make it click.
I know it doesn't seem like it was really like something wrong with
He's
Caution.
gorgeous, he's sweet, he's a royal.
He's respecting the hell out of you as well.
Yeah, he, like, hypes her up all the time. Every time people are talking about it, he's like, "Oh, she's the best healer."
Meanwhile, Irene's looking at Kale like, "Don't you bring me into this convo."
So Chaos switches the subject to Caution's time in Balrune with the kingdom's land armies. He spends most of his time of the year there overseeing the training of troops, and when he's not there, he's with their mother people, the Horse Lords. It starts as a I don't want to get on Irene's bad side and I need to change the subject away from her. And then Kale's like, wait a minute. I could actually get some useful information about the armies and the forges that they constructed. But he's not the only one to realize that. Argan cuts in, and that's when Kale realizes Caution isn't being considered for the throne because he just obeys his brother like a soldier. Like he's not in charge.
But he's also not thinking strategically if he's just putting all the
Like
information out
telling this,
there.
I mean, they are not actively at war with Aderlin, but it's still another kingdom
It's also
that you're
exactly
telling
what
your armies about.
Kale's there for. So he's like, "Don't give him anything to go on. You need to stop." The later it gets, the more worried Kale is about Nezrin. As he's looking around, Irene catches his eyes with a warning look. Don't reveal your concern or ask them to look for her. So when dessert arrives, Kale feigns exhaustion and returns to his room.
I'd go after dessert. That's my
Right.
favorite part.
Priorities.
And the scene that it's like Kale is he's not pacing. He's like just sitting in the room worried. It reminds me of Selena waiting on Sam in Assassin's Blade. Like it's a very different ending, of course. But he's sitting there worried and he's listening to the clock on the mantle.
It's a very helpless feeling.
Yeah, but have you ever wondered, I don't know why my mind went here, but what would have happened if Sam hadn't died? Like, remember their plan was to come to the southern continent?
Hmm.
Would the gods have intervened? Like, Aelin would have never been at Endovier, so she would have probably never been taken to the castle or met Dorian and Chaol. Like, but I don't think there was any divine intervention in Sam being killed, but it also had to happen. I mean,
Well,
there are like if there were parallel universes, maybe they didn't die and then cuz when they were trying to find a like they were trying to find someone for Dorian to participate in the King's Champion tournament. They talked about Arabin, so
mhm.
maybe even if she were not in Endovier, Selena would have been suggested as the champion.
I don't know, but that's if they had truly gone to the southern continent, Aylin's power would have spoken up immediately,
Yeah.
and there's no way you can pretend that that fire magic is small. Like, she wouldn't be able to downplay it. She'd probably have a full panic attack
Mhm.
because I mean, we saw how when she got to Winland, she was not prepared to, like, what am I trying to say? Like, address her fire magic. Like,
Yeah.
she was afraid of it. So
But then the
I don't
Rowan of it
know.
all, like if Sam hadn't died and like say that there was no Chaol and Dorian love triangle and she's just with Sam the whole time
I don't know.
and like
Like,
Sam goes with her to Wendland, like how would she get to Wendland because Chaol cared enough about her to make that deal with his dad to get her over there.
oh,
It's just
sure.
like
I don't know. I think if they had actually made it to the southern continent, I think that her magic would have come out somehow, and then Sam would have confronted her like, "What is going on?
yeah.
What are you not telling me?" You know, and then I don't know. I don't know where it would
It's
have
just
gone from
interesting to
there,
think about.
but I don't think she could have been. been able to hide from it.
With her and Rowan are inevitable, so there would have been, like, a lot of heartbreak.
Something would have I don't know, like, if they're inevitable, though, like, I feel like something would have brought them back around. Like, something
Mhm.
would have changed so that they could connect somehow.
Yeah.
At 1 a.m., Nezrin slips in and Kale goes like full mom. Where have you been? Bed's empty, no note, car gone. You could have died. You could have been seen.
Where have you been? But I think more than because I mean, it's a safe city, especially for Nezrin. She has family there. More than being worried about her, it was Kale was unable to go look for her. And I think that's what bothered him the most.
Well, and I mean, I don't know if there's a potential. She could have sent a note back to him like, hey, I found my
But she
family.
was
I'm staying
also
for
like
dinner.
caught up with like catching up with her, caught up with catching up with her family. So like she wasn't thinking about Kale in that
But
moment.
that says a lot about their relationship. Like, they don't communicate well
Right.
anyway. And, like, not that he doesn't matter, but because they haven't communicated enough, she doesn't even know that he could be worried about her,
Yeah.
I guess. Nezrin tells Kale that her family received a letter from her father yesterday. They got out of the city, but she doesn't know where they are now.
She's also like, I have nothing to fear in this city, which is a huge contrast to Rifthold, a place that she is becoming more and more disconnected from, like more disillusioned with. And like that attitude is coming out a little bit.
Yeah.
And Kale, he doesn't know what to do with that because he's also like, aren't we fighting to make Rifthold safe? And then she's like, should I be fighting for those people? It's just like very complicated.
I mean, it is, but even Kale's not thinking about the people. He's only thinking about Dorian. So you're like, why are you pushing so hard for
Exactly.
this, Kale?
Yeah.
Nezrin walks into her room and slams the door. Kale waits for her to open the door again, but it stays closed all night.
And again, it's like not being able to go look for her, not like not being able to fuck her like he wants to. Like he just can't modify anything. Like it's all or nothing with him.
Mhm.
And he says that he's not able to go, I guess, into her room without Kaja like dragging her out of bed. But why wouldn't he be able to go into her room without help? Is it upstairs?
Is he still in the chair?
Yeah, but it rolls.
Yeah, I don't
He
uh
seems to not be able to because it's even like Kaja. I guess he wouldn't have known the way, but having Kaja drop him off at Argan's room was something it seems like he would have been able to do on his own.
that makes sense maybe if he just didn't know the way to get there, but like, I don't know, maybe there are steps into her room.
Yeah,
Maybe
because he's like,
there's
I don't want to go wake her up, and I'm not even able to go like see if she's okay.
Is he undressed? Is there something to do with getting dressed? I don't
Like
know.
his dick's out. I don't know
How did
why.
she walk away from that?
I don't know. He's just lost his autonomy like overall, and he is struggling with finding internal self-worth like throughout this entire book. Like he gets so mad at his own body for not being capable of what it used to be capable
He's
of.
not willing to accept where he is now. He's not willing to let go of what he had.
He needs to be able to do push up on his knees. That's what I have to do. You have to modify.
It'll be okay. We'll pick up in Empire of Storms with chapters 14 through 16 and Tower of Dawn chapters 8 through 12 next week.
And thank y'all so much for the ratings and reviews.